Hello, my name is Heidi Mendenhall. I am the First Five Tehama Executive Director, and I am here to talk to you about reading. If you have a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, or 4- and 5-year-old, chances are there has been a thought that creeped into your head, am I doing enough? Am I even qualified to teach reading? Because let's face it, reading is a big deal and there's a lot of pressure put on parents. I am here to tell you 3 easy tips that you can do to ensure that you build a solid foundation of reading. The first tip I like to call the rerun. So we get kind of bored watching reruns, but toddler brains, 3-year-old brains, 4- and 5-year-old brains, they don't. Their brains are primed to hear the same story over and over again. It helps them solidify an understanding around the sounds, the words, and even the actual story aspect of the beginning, middle, and end. So your job, the tip is, when you think you're done, you've just begun. Every time you read a story, ask the question at the end, do you want to hear it again? And then rerun that story over and over again. We might get a little tired of it, but I promise you, your 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds will get miles of growth in their brain from it. Tip number 2 is the replay. Now, replaying is more about language than it is about reading with the book. Replay means whenever you're doing an activity or experience with your child, it can just be driving in the car, replay it to them. So, oh yeah, look, we just passed a tree and it had some different color leaves on it. If you're outside at a park swinging, replay what they're doing. Oh look, you're swinging back and forth. I noticed the chains are moving when you swing. Do you hear that? Right? Replay what it is that they're experiencing. Now, this can feel a bit silly to us as adults, but what it's doing is developing vocabulary in relation to what they are actually feeling. And what we know is the more language, the more words, the more vocabulary, the easier time they have both learning to read and learning from reading as they get older. I like to think of it as the replay because it's similar to a sportscaster. Right? When we're watching that baseball game, we're used to the sportscaster replaying what happened. Oh, he's rounding second, he's coming into third, right? Or oh, they're throwing home. And while we are watching it, we're also hearing it at the same time. It's the same exact thing we want to do for our children, even when they're 6 months old, up through 5, 6, and 7. We just keep increasing that vocabulary and the amount of words that we're using to replay. Tip number 3 is the retell. So retelling is really powerful for children. Once they hear the story, ask them to retell it to you. Now, if you remember back to tip number 1, if they've heard the rerun, the retell becomes much easier for them, right? And when they retell it, you can ask them questions like, oh, was that your favorite part? Or then what happened next? Or, oh yeah, he did solve the problem doing it that way. Have you ever solved a problem like that? Right? So when we retell the story, we're building in our comprehension of the story, and we're building in connections from the story to our real life. And that helps with reading, because while we do need children to understand what the letters and the sounds say, even more so we need them to understand what they mean. And when they retell, they're really building deep understanding of the meaning of the words and the meaning of the story that helps them throughout their education career.